Hello there, Andrew Jobling, the accidental author, and excited because another new author. I love it talking to new authors because it's a new journey for them. It's a new part of the process of creating that wonderful life. And I'm excited to be talking to Marilyn Revill today, who has just published her very first book, Aubrey's Game. So welcome, Marilyn.
Thank you for having me, Andrew.
Thank you for being part of this. I think, I love talking to new authors, as I said, because there's so much. Not only do I want to hear about your book and why you wrote it and what it's all about, but it's also inspiring for all those aspiring authors who want to know, what does it feel like to hold that book in your hands. So why don't we start there, Marilyn, and if you can hold up the book and tell us how it feels to have that book in your hands.
Well, there's the book. And if you're an aspiring author, I guess I prove you're never too old to start. Yeah, it's lovely. It's lovely. And it's a little bit surreal. One of my family picked it up, felt it, touched it, looked at it and said, "Gee, Mum, it looks like a real one." Tongue in cheek. But it's a little bit how I feel about it. Being in my 70s and writing a book wasn't something I ever anticipated doing. When I started to write it, I felt driven to write a story. And, you don't start writing a book at that age, but I did. So, any aspiring authors you got there.
There's no barriers, is there? So no. Aubrey's Game, that's your father, right? Aubrey's
yes.
Your father, and he's had a pretty interesting life. So tell us a little bit about your dad. A little bit about his life and what inspired you to want to write a book about him?
I think the passage of the years. He lived for over 100 years, Andrew.
Wow.
With a mind that was intelligent and ticking right to the end. So that's in itself a little bit unusual.
That's
amazing. He was born in 1910. Yeah. He was born in 1910, and the day he was born, in the Adelaide paper, there was an article about, really telling the women on the trams to stand up and let the men have their seats, because the men were the ones doing the work, and this was how it should be. So that was the day he was born. And if that takes you to what the times were then, it gives you an idea of the total passage of the years in everything.
Wow.
And watching, my first memories of him, he was about 38, I think, when I first have any memories of him. But watching how things changed over the years and how he either coped with it or didn't cope with it, he questioned everything. He had an intelligent outlook that meant he read about everything. He looked at what was happening in the world and he did what probably we do and went, whoa, is this where we're going? Is this right? And he saw so many firsts that it was staggering, and so many, for him, ethical things that rose. It was staggering. Watching him at 100 and before 100, battling with, after being his own man all his life, being quite sure who he was, being a strong character who had quite a lot of impact on a lot of lives, suddenly being confused about what he'd thought over the years that might be wrong now, because ethics was saying, this has changed, you can't say that, you can't think that. Just dress had changed. No one dresses up anymore. Fortunately, he didn't see the jeans with the holes in the knees. He found that to him, it didn't matter. You had to be clean with your presentation and neat, and it was just the era he came from. Just simple things like that had changed. Language had changed. Nobody spoke the Queen's English anymore. And the things that changed in technology, medicine, IVF, he watched all these things. He questioned all these things. He used to ask his grandchildren questions that sometimes they probably would have rather he didn't ask them, but how they felt about these things. So watching such a period of years change the man was epic because of the length of the time and the change that happened.
Totally. And I think, I mean, I've had this conversation with other people, and I think the last 100 years, or, you know, the time that Aubrey was alive, that 100 years between 1910 and 2010, I don't think there's going to be a century where there's more significant change. And I know the way technology is now, you know, things are going to change rapidly, but it won't surprise people. Like, I think, you know, people in 1910 would never believe that there's a phone that can talk to you, and that there's, you know, the stuff that's happened, the technology. No one could. Today we can believe pretty much anything is possible, whereas I don't think back in 1910. So I think and the war, he went through 2 world wars, and Vietnam and Korean War, and all those. Wow, what an amazing period of time to be alive, and the fact that he was there and with it for 100 years is incredible. So Marilyn, tell us, why did you decide to write the book, and what is your intention with the book?
When he was extremely old, to put it that way, that questioning of what his life had been about really started. He hadn't questioned that. We'd heard he was witty, he was intelligent, he was engaging and entertaining, and we'd heard his stories about things that had happened through his life. What we hadn't got was the raw emotion, because he was a man of his time. You didn't show your feelings, a bit austere. But in those later years, particularly after his wife died, the raw emotion started to come out with those stories he'd told us. And I started to get the sense of what he'd actually felt during those happenings of the years, not just what had happened, but what had happened internally, mentally for him in coping with those things. And that's a gift that we sometimes don't get, because it doesn't get talked about, and but it just poured out because he was so extremely old. And he was angry that he couldn't die. He didn't want to be here at the end. Not because he was so sick. I mean, he was debilitated to the degree that he was in a nursing home, but his brain wasn't there. His brain wasn't in the nursing home. And he was angry because he felt that he should have been able to choose when he died, like he'd made all the other decisions in his life. And it made me realise several things. One was, you walk into the nursing home and you see everybody around. You've got no idea who they ever were, what they ever did. Neither has the staff in most cases. They don't have time to find out. But it sometimes would alter perhaps how they react to that person, because what they say might be not appropriate these days and so forth. But so that was something that was noticeable, and the staff were marvellous where he was. The fact that he was suddenly, over these last years, questioning lots of things he'd done. And he lived a good life, and he lived well. He did the best he could of it. But he was beginning to see the change in, if you like, political correctness for a start, where he started to question, had I been right thinking that, acting that way? And it made me realise that I don't think we realise quite how difficult it's going to be if, like, for example, my grandchildren live to the 120, the 110 that's being projected as a lifespan. How on earth are they going to cope if they do? And there were lots of things in those last years that were ringing bells. And it drove me to write the book, because he did live a very interesting life. He did do the best he could with it. And had he died 20 years earlier, he wouldn't have, or those changes had happened, he was still coping better with them. It was that last 20 years, particularly the last 15, that rang bells for me, that there was a message here.
So what is it about your dad that inspires you the most?
Sorry?
What inspires you the most about your dad?
I think lots of people in his time, they had a different ethic. Work hours, for example. If it was daylight, you worked. In most occupations. And of course, here it was largely agricultural in those days, but it didn't matter what it was. Daylight hours were for working, where our life has changed to where we believe there's a certain amount of leisure and everything else that we should fit into that. That didn't exist. Things were in very straight lines ethically of what you did about this or what you did about that. And he was very much a man of his times. So in some of those things, there would be a whole generation of people like him, but he wasn't just the norm in his generation.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, perhaps it was the fact he was highly intelligent, perhaps it was just the fact that he was moody, very moody, may have even been possibly bipolar these days, we might have said, because there were swings. Who knows? But it was just such an interesting life when we got the feelings coming out of what happened that I felt he'd left more of a legacy than he left just us.
Yeah.
And I wanted to write it down.
Wonderful. It sounds like an amazing book, Marilyn, and I know it'll do very, very well. Let's just quickly change gears for a sec. I want you to, for the aspiring authors that are watching this, if you had one sort of tip you could give them, to keep going, to get through, to get to the point where they could hold that book in their hand, what would that tip be?
I'm not supposed to say this. Use Aubrey for a mentor.
No, yeah, forget about that. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that, but thank you. What was it for you internally that?
Okay, seriously, I was driven to write the story. So I was more fortunate than some authors where perhaps, and I had a story to write. I didn't need to develop a plot and whatnot, if you like. I had to be very careful that I didn't put my feelings on the page. It's his story. I only told it. So I had to be careful there. But the writing of it, for me, I was lucky, was relatively easy once I made up my mind to do it. What kept me going, and I'm sorry, but it's true, what kept me going was a lot of the information through working with you that came in all the areas that helped in how to perhaps format things, how to plan things, how to, you know what? It's exactly true. You have to make the habits. You have to do the plan. You have to have a system. You have to have a process. And if you don't have those things, it isn't going to work for you.
Yeah. So taking me out of the equation, what you're really saying is accountability.
Not meaning to embarrass you.
having some accountability, things in place, and having some structure and having some. Okay, wonderful. Now, Marilyn, people I know want to get their hands on this book. How do they do that?
It can be bought through my website, which is marilynrevill.com.au, and just the spelling is sometimes, a problem.
That's okay. It's coming up on the screen now as we talk anyway.
Yes, yes. And the book is available on the website. There's information on there about it. And how to get hold of it.
Wonderful. Well, congratulations. It's a wonderful achievement, Marilyn, for what you have done. And I know it sounds like a wonderful, wonderful book that will do incredibly well and inspire many people. And I know you've got more plans to write more books. But for now, congratulations on Aubrey's Game. And thank you for taking the time to chat.
Thank you very much.